Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're doing something a little different.
Yeah, a bit more technical.
Usually we look at broad market trends, or we analyze a new piece of consumer tech.
Right.
But today, we are looking under the hood of the machine that effectively runs the global economy.
We are looking at SAP,
And specifically, we are looking at the part of SAP that actually matters.
the data, the raw tables.
Right. We've pulled together a massive stack of sources here: architectural guides, troubleshooting manuals, S/4HANA migration notes, and some really dense technical forums. And the goal is to bridge a very specific gap.
A painful gap for a lot of people.
We're talking to the listener we call the learner. This is the consultant who knows the screens, they know the transaction codes, they can run a VAO1 or VSO1 in their sleep, but they want to stop guessing when things break.
That's the key phrase, stop guessing. Because if you are just looking at the user interface, the screens the end users see, you are essentially looking at a mask.
Oh, a mask.
A friendly mask, sure, but it isn't showing you the reality of the system.
The sources call this the data model mindset. Now, before we get into the specific table names, and we have about 50 of them to cover today, can you just explain that philosophy? Why does a functional consultant need to think like a database architect?
Because the screen lies to you.
It lies.
Or at the very least, it simplifies things to the point of obscurity. When you are a junior consultant, you think in terms of process flow. You fill in a field, you hit enter, you get that little green success message at the bottom left.
And you think the job is done.
You think the job is done. But it's rarely that simple. Under the surface, that one enter key triggered a cascade of updates. I mean, it's writing records across maybe dozens of relational tables.
Okay.
And if just one of those updates fails, maybe a tax code didn't map correctly or a critical partner function is missing, the process just stops.
It just hangs.
It just hangs.
Yeah.
And if you only know the screen, you are stuck. You have no idea what went wrong, so what do? You call a developer. But if you know the tables, you can run a query yourself in seconds and see, okay, I see it. Record X is missing from table Y. You move from being a user of the system to being a mechanic.
It's the difference between driving the car and knowing how to fix the fuel injection system.
Exactly. And the sources point to three really tangible benefits to this approach.
Okay.
First, speed. You debug faster, much faster. Second, you get to the absolute truth. Tables don't have user-friendly labels that might hide the technical reality. The data is the data.
No ambiguity.
None. And third, and this is huge for your career, better functional specifications.
FSs. These are the documents you write to tell a programmer, an ABB developer, what to build, right?
Yes. And honestly, most consultants write terrible specs.
What does a bad one look like?
It says something vague like, please fetch the customer's address for the report.
And what's wrong with that?
Well, which address? Is it the sold to's address, the shipped to's, the one-time address they put on this specific invoice, the legal address from the master data?
Ah, I see.
A developer can't guess. But if you write, fetch field ORT01 from table KNA1, where KNR equals the orders sold to party, there is zero ambiguity. You get exactly what you asked for.
Okay, I'm sold. We need to be mechanics. So let's open the toolbox. The sources categorize these tables into foundation, process, and control. So let's start with the foundation. Master data.
You have to. You cannot have a transaction without master data. In sales and distribution, or SD, everything, and I mean everything, starts with the customer.
Now, looking at the documentation, customer isn't just a single table. It looks more like a cluster of tables.
Right.
You have KNA1, KNB1, and KNVV. Why the separation? Why not just one big spreadsheet for each customer?
It's a core database principle called normalization. SAP splits the data based on its scope or its context.
Okay, so what's the scope of the first one, KNA1?
KNA1 is the general data. Think of this as the global header for the human being or the company. It's the data that's true no matter what.
So things that are true regardless of where I am standing or what I'm selling them.
Correct. The customer's official name, that's field name ME1, their city, ORT01, their main tax number, STCD1. Whether you are selling to them from your New York sales office or your Berlin factory, their legal name is their legal name. That lives in KNA1.
But I can't just sell to a name in a city. I need to bill them. I need financial details.
And that brings us to the second table, KNB1. This is the company code data. This is the financial lens.
So this is data that's only relevant to my specific legal entity, my company code.
Exactly. You might have a customer created globally in the system, so they exist in KNA1, but if you haven't extended them to your specific company code in KNB1, they effectively don't exist for your finance department.
Is this a common failure point? Because
Yes.
it sounds like a classic setup mistake.
Oh, all the time. A really common help desk ticket is, I can't post the billing document to accounting.
Okay.
The SD consultant looks at the sales order, they look at the invoice, everything looks perfectly fine. But if they just looked at table KNB1, specifically the field ACONT, the reconciliation account, they'd see it's empty.
ACON. And that's the critical link to the general ledger.
It is. It's the bridge. Without that field populated in KNB1, the system has no idea which GL account to hit with the receivables posting. It just hits a brick wall. So whenever you hear posting error, your first stop is KNB1.
So KNA1 is who they are. KNB1 is how we build them. That leaves KNVV. The sources describe this one as the most critical SD table. That's a pretty bold claim.
I think it's justified. KNDV is the sales data. It's the table that links the customer to its specific sales area.
And a sales area, just to remind everyone, is that unique combination of three things, right?
Correct. Sales organization, distribution channel, and division. For example, U.S. sales, wholesale channel, electronics division. That's one sales area.
So KNVV is the gatekeeper.
Precisely. You can have the customer perfectly set up in KNA1. You can have the finance data flawlessly entered in KNB1. But if you do not have a record in KNVV for the specific sales channel you're trying to use, your sales team cannot enter an order.
And that's when they get that infamous error message.
The one everyone knows, customer not defined for sales area.
And when you see that error, you don't just stare at the screen.
No. You go straight to transaction SE16 on the table browser, and you plug in the customer and the sales area into KNBV. If no record comes back, you know exactly what master data is missing. Problem solved in 30 seconds.
Are there any specific fields in KNVV that act as gotchas? You know, the ones that cause problems downstream?
Oh, several. But the big one, the one that causes so many headaches in logistics, is VSBED.
BSB.
Shipping conditions. This one little field is a massive downstream driver. It's one of the key inputs the system uses to automatically determine which shipping point to use.
And a shipping point is the physical location, like a loading dock where the truck picks up the goods.
Exactly. So if your sales order is defaulting to a shipping point in a completely different country or one that doesn't even exist anymore 9 times out of 10, it's because the VSBED value in that customer's KNVV record is wrong.
It's really amazing how one field, one small piece of data in one table, can derail the logistics of a physical truck leaving a warehouse.
That is the butterfly effect of ERP data. One wrong digit in KNVV, and the truck, in theory, goes to the wrong dock.
Okay, let's keep going with master data. We have the customer as an entity. But in B2B scenarios, a customer is rarely just one single entity. There's the person who places the order, the warehouse that receives the goods, the headquarters that pays the bill.
Partner functions, and that's table KNVP.
So this table defines all those different relationships.
Yes. For a given customer who is the designated sold to, who is the ship to party, who is the bill to, and who is the payer, KNVP maps all of this out.
Why is this so important for troubleshooting? I'd assume this is pretty static information.
It should be, but think about automation, like electronic data interchange EDI. You have a huge retailer like Walmart sending you a purchase order electronically. The IDOC comes into your system, and it fails.
And the error message is probably cryptic.
Always. Something like mandatory partner AG missing. And you're stuck because the sales order hasn't even been created yet, so there's no screen to look at.
So you have to go to the tables.
You have to. Usually, the incoming electronic message has a code for a ship-to location, like Walmart store, #583. You need to check KNVP. Does that ship-to code exist as a valid partner for the sold-to customer who sent the order? If that link isn't maintained in KNVP, the system rejects the entire transaction.
So KNVP is the map of all the valid business relationships. Now we have the who, we need the what, the product, the material master.
The material master, you'll see, follows a very similar logic to the customer master. We have a global header, we have sales-specific data, and then we have plant-specific data.
Okay, let's run through the acronyms for these.
MRA is the global level. It's the direct equivalent of KNA1. It contains data that applies to the material everywhere, in every plant and every sales org.
What's a key field to watch in MRA?
The one I always check first is MSDA, the cross-plant material status. If a product is being phased out or is discontinued or is on a quality hold, that flag lives in Marrow. If you see an error like material excluded from transaction, check MSTAE first.
Okay, that makes sense. Then we have MVKE.
MVKE is the sales data, so it mirrors KNVV for the customer. It's specific to a sales org and a distribution channel. The absolute golden nugget in this table is the field KTGRM.
KTGRM. That sounds financial again.
It is. It stands for Account Assignment Group. This little field is a primary driver for revenue recognition. It tells the system which revenue account in the general ledger to credit when you sell this product.
So if you're selling, say, a service contract, but the revenue is hitting the finished goods hardware account.
Your account assignment group in MBKE is wrong. That's a classic reconciliation problem for the finance team at the end of the month.
And finally, the plant data. MRC.
MRC is where logistics really happens for the material. This table holds the loading group, field LADGR.
Loading group. Now, you mentioned shipping conditions in the customer master earlier.
Right, from KNVV, field VSBED.
How do they relate?
Well, the system calculates the final shipping point using a literal equation. The formula is shipping condition from the customer plus the loading group from the material plus the plant.
So it's an actual formula.
It is. And if any one of those variables is missing, like the loading group is blank in MRC, the math fails. No shipping point can be determined. No delivery can be created.
It's an equation, and if you don't know the variables, you can't solve it.
You've got it.
Before we wrap up master data, the sources highlight what they call a secret weapon table, KNMT, the customer material info record. They call this the override table.
Yes. This is a favorite of power users and a source of confusion for everyone else.
Why is that?
Well, sometimes a specific customer has very specific requirements for one of your products that differ from your standard setup. Maybe they call your part 100 by their own internal name, widget A. You can map that in KNMT.
Okay, that sounds useful, but why is it an override?
Because it takes precedence over everything else. This is a classic troubleshooting nightmare. You're looking at an order and it's behaving strangely. Maybe it's pulling a weird plan or a specific delivery priority that makes no sense.
So you check the basics.
Right. You check the customer master, KNVV. You check the material master, AVKE. Everything looks standard. You're pulling your hair out.
And the answer is in KNMT.
The answer is almost always in KNMT. If a record exists there for that customer and that material, the system ignores the general master data and uses the specific values from KNMT instead. It's the trump card. So, pro tip, if the system isn't behaving according to the general rules, always check KNMT.
We have to address the elephant in the room regarding master data, S/4HANA. The sources are very clear that the customer concept has fundamentally changed.
It has, and this is a huge shift. In the old ECC versions, you created a customer, or you created a vendor. In S/4HANA, every entity, person, organization, group is a business partner first.
A BP.
A BP, that is the new central object.
So does that mean KNA1, KND1, KNVV?
Yeah.
Do they all disappear?
No, and this is what confuses people. The tables, KNA1, KNB1, KNVV, they all still exist, but they are now downstream read-only views in a sense. You cannot update them directly anymore.
So where do I create the data then, if not in the old transactions?
You create a business partner, a BP, and that data is stored in a table called BUT1000 VRO. That is the new single source of truth. The system then uses a synchronization process, it's called CVI, Customer Vendor Integration, to automatically copy that BP data into the old customer tables like KNA1.
So if I'm writing a report, which table do I query? The new one or the old one?
That is a great question, and it depends. If you're writing a sales report, you generally still query KNA1 because it links cleanly to the sales orders. But if you're trying to find the absolute truth of who the entity is, or if you're debugging why a user's address update didn't seem to stick, you have to look at BUT1000 and the CVI link table, which is CVI seat link.
That sounds like it adds a whole new layer of complexity for troubleshooting.
It does, because if that synchronization process breaks, and believe me, it does, you might have a perfect business partner in BUT1000, but the KNA1 record is stale and out of date.
And the user sees the new address on the BP screen.
Right, but the sales order still pulls the old wrong address from KNA1. That is a classic S/4HANA bug. You have to check CVI SILIC to see if the sync process failed for that customer.
Okay, one last piece on master data before we move on, addresses. I was really surprised to read that the address fields in KNA1, like the street and city fields, are often not the real address. What's that about?
That's been true for a very long time, actually, but people often forget it. SAP uses something called Central Address Management. KNA1 has a field called ADRNR.
ADRNR.
It stands for address number, and that number is just a pointer. It points to a record in a completely different central table called ADRC. That's where the real detailed address data is stored.
So I read a SQL query, a simple select from KNA1. I'm going to get a city name.
You'll get a snapshot, the basic data. But what if you want the customer's primary email address? It's not in KNA1. What if you need the international versions of the address for customs forms? It's not in KNA1.
So I have to join the tables.
You have to join KNA1 to ADRC using that ADRNR address number. And for something like an email address, you have to go even deeper to a subtable of the address system called ADR6.
So if you're a consultant writing a spec and you just say, fetch the customer email, without telling the developer about ADRC and ADR6.
They will spend 3 days looking for a field that simply doesn't exist in the customer table.
This is exactly what we mean by the data model mindset. Okay, we have our foundation, we have a customer, we have a material, and we know our partner functions. Now let's actually make a sale. Section 2, the core process sales document tables.
This is where the action happens. This is the transactional data.
And we have a clear hierarchy here. Header, item, and then schedule line. Let's start at the very top. VBAK.
VBAK is the sales document header. It contains everything that applies to the entire order as a whole. Who is the customer? What is the order type? That's field AUART. What's the creation date?
But there is one field in here that the sources call the holy grail of SD tables.
Yes. KNUMV, the document condition number.
KNUMV.
If you learn one field today, it's KNUMV. Write this down. Tattoo it on your arm. KNUMV is the technical bridge, the only bridge between the sales order and all of its pricing details.
Why is that so important? Can't I just look up the price in the order table itself?
No, you can't. VBA holds the total net value of the order, say $100. But if you want to know why it's $100, what was the base price, how much was the discount, what was the freight charge, how much was the tax, that detail is not in VBA.
It's stored somewhere else.
It's stored in the pricing condition tables. And the only key, the only password to unlock those pricing tables for this specific order is the KNUMV value stored in VBA.
So if I have a report that needs to show the discount amount for every single order, I have to first go to VBAK, grab the KNUMV for each order, and then use that to go hunting in the pricing tables.
Exactly. Without KNUMV, you are completely locked out of the pricing details.
Okay, so VBAK is the header. The next level down is the items in VBAP.
VBAP holds the line items, the actual things being ordered. I want 10 of material A. I want 5 of material B.
And the key driver here is a field called PSTYV.
Right, the item category. This little 4-character code basically decides the entire fate of that line item. Is it a standard item? Is it relevant for billing? Is it relevant for delivery? Is it a free good that shouldn't be priced? All of that behavior is controlled by the item category.
And importantly, VBA is where you find the plant field works for that specific line item.
Yes, and that's a key point. The header in VBA might have a default plant, say New York, but a specific line item in VBA can override that and say, actually, for this one item, ship it from our Jersey warehouse. The item level always wins.
Now, here's a table that I think gets overlooked by beginners, but the experts in the forums all point to it. VBEP, the schedule line data.
VBEP is where the rubber meets the road. I like to say it's the intersection of sales and materials management. It's where promises meet reality.
Explain that. What do you mean by promises meet reality?
Well, a line item in VBEP says, I want 10 widgets. That's a wish. That's what the customer asked for. The schedule line in VBEP says, here is the reality of our supply chain.
Say it might break it down.
Exactly. VBEP might split that single line item into 2 schedule lines. One row that says, I can give you 5 on Tuesday, and a second row that says, I can give you the other 5 on Friday.
So if I look at the item in VBEP, I just see a quantity of 10. But if I look at VBEP for that item, I see the actual delivery split.
Correct. And this brings us to what the sources call the ATP insight.
ATP being available to promise, the inventory check.
Exactly. If you are in the system trying to create a delivery for an order and the system blocks you, says you can't do it, don't just scream at the screen. Go to table VBEP for that order item.
And what am I looking for in VBEP?
You are looking for the field BMENG. Confirmed quantity. If the confirmed quantity in VBEP is 0, it means the system performed an availability check against inventory and said, nope, we don't have it.
So it doesn't matter what the customer ordered.
It doesn't matter if the order quantity is 100. If the confirmed quantity in VBEP is 0, you cannot create a delivery, period. End of story.
That is a very clear, definitive check. Now, we talked about partners in the master data in KNVP, but the sources also list a partner table for the sales document itself, VBPA. Why do we need both? This seems redundant.
It's not redundant, it's about specificity. The master data in KNVP is the default plan. It's the standard set of partners for this customer, but maybe for this specific order, the customer calls and says, hey, can you ship this one to a different construction site?
A one-time address.
A one-time address.
Right.
Or maybe there's a specific freight forwarder just for this shipment. That specific override, for this transaction only, is stored in VBPA.
So when the output logic runs, like sending an order confirmation email, where does it look for the email address, the master data or the transaction data?
It must look at VBPA, the transaction data. This is a classic development mistake. If you code your output program to look at the customer master, KNVP, you will send the email to the default contact at their headquarters.
And not the person who actually placed this order.
Exactly. You end up sending confidential pricing to the wrong person because the developer queried the master data instead of the transaction data. The rule is always trust the transaction data in VBPA over the master data in KNVP for a specific document.
That is a subtle but incredibly critical distinction. And speaking of the DNA of a transaction, we have to talk about VBFA, the sales document flow.
VBFA is the genealogy of SD. It's the family tree. It links the preceding document to the subsequent document.
So it connects the dots.
All of them. The quote to order, order to delivery, delivery to invoice, return order to credit memo. Every single link is a record in VBFA.
And the logic is simple. A preceding document number, VBELME, and a subsequent document number, VBALN.
Right. So if you want to see if a specific sales order has been invoiced, you query VBFA. You put the order number in the preceding field, VBELV, and you look for a record where the subsequent document category is M for invoice.
But wait, the expert notes here have a giant red warning label right next to VBFA. It says, do not use VBFA for mass reporting, in all caps. Why is that?
Because it is a performance killer. An absolute system crusher if used incorrectly. VBFA is a massive table. In older systems, it's what's known as a cluster table, which is very inefficient to read. It contains every single link for every document in the entire history of your system.
So if I try to run a report that joins to VBFA for, say, 1 million sales orders,
your system will hang, the query will time out. Users will call you complaining that the system is frozen. You don't want to be that person.
So if I can't use VBFA for reporting, how do I link an order to a delivery in a report?
You use the direct links in the item tables, which we are about to get to. The rule of thumb is VBFA is for looking up the history of one specific document chain. It is not for listing all document chains.
That is a very important warning.
Yeah.
Okay, moving down the chain, we have the order, now we need to ship it. Section 3, Shipping and Logistics Tables. We are looking at LIKP and LIFPS.
It's a very similar structure to sales orders. LIKP is the delivery header, and LIPS is the delivery item.
Let's start with the header, LIKP. What are the key fields to watch in there?
From a business perspective, the most critical date field is WADATIST, the actual goods issue date.
Why is that specific one so important? There's so many dates on a delivery. Picking date, loading date, planned GI date.
Because WADATIST is the date that hits the general ledger and finance. The picking date, CODAT, that matters for the warehouse manager, but WADATIST, that matters for the CFO.
Because it determines the accounting period.
Precisely. That date determines which fiscal period the cost of goods sold and the inventory reduction fall into. If you post goods issue on January 31st at 11:59 p.m., it's in January's books. If you do it at 12:01 a.m. on February 1st, it's in February's books. WADATIST is that definitive timestamp.
Okay, and for the item level LPS, there's a backlink that helps us avoid using that slow VBFA table we just talked about.
Yes. This is the golden join for reporting. In the table LPS, the delivery item table, there are two fields, VGBL, which means reference document, and VGPOS, reference item.
And those store the original sales order number.
They store the preceding sales order number and item number directly on the delivery item record.
So if I'm writing a report to show me all deliveries created from order X, I should just query LPS where VGBL equals my order X number.
100%. It is infinitely faster and more efficient than trying to traverse the massive VBFA document flow table.
That's a huge tip. Now, what about packing? Let's say we're putting items into physical boxes, handling units. The tables are VEKP and VEPO.
Handling unit management, or HUM, is very common in logistics-heavy industries. It's simple, really. VEKP is the header. Think of it as the physical box or the pallet. It holds the external ID, like the SSCC barcode you scan with a handheld gun.
In VEPO.
VEPO is the content. It answers the question, what is inside that box? It's the table that links the box, VEKP, to the specific delivery item from LipES.
So if a customer calls and complains, you sent me a box, but it was empty, where do we look to verify?
You check VEPO, you take the box number from VEKP and search for it in VEPO. If no records are found, then as far as the system is concerned, you shipped an empty box.
And finally, for logistics, let's talk about the big trucks. Shipments, VTTK and VTTP.
This is LETRA, logistics execution. This is a level above the delivery. You might have 10 different deliveries going to 10 different customers, but they are all physically on one truck heading west.
So the shipment represents the truck.
The truck, the vessel, the flight. VTTK is the shipment header, and VTTP is the shipment item, which is the table that links the shipment number, TK and UM, to all the individual deliveries, VBLLN, that are on that truck.
It really is a relational map of the physical world. A sales order links to a delivery, which links to a box or handling unit, which links to a truck or shipment.
It has to mirror reality. If the data doesn't match what's physically happening, the whole process breaks down.
Okay, the truck has left the building. Now we want to get paid. Section 4. Billing and finance tables. The invoice, VBRK and VBRP.
The invoice, or billing document, VBRK is the header. The single most critical field for troubleshooting here is RFBSK.
RFBSK.
It's the transfer status to accounting.
I see. So if the user says, I created the invoice, it exists, but finance says they can't see it in their system, this is where you look first.
Exactly. You go to VBRK for that invoice number and check the value of RFBSK. If it's C, it means complete accounting has it, the handshake is done. If it's A or B, it means it's still pending posting. And if it's blank, you have a problem. An error occurred during the transfer.
And VBRP is the invoice item data. I'm guessing it has the same kind of backlinks as the delivery did.
It does. It has AUBEL, which is the original sales order number, and it has VGBEL, the delivery number it was created from. So from a single invoice line, you can trace the entire chain backward. This invoice line comes from this delivery line, which comes from this sales order line.
Now, here's the handshake. The sources call this the bridge to finance. The key table here is BKPF.
BKPF is the accounting document header. This is technically the realm of the FI, the finance consultant, but every good SD expert needs to know this table.
Why is it so critical?
Because the biggest question in any month-end reconciliation meeting is, how do we prove that the sales revenue in our SD reports matches the actual revenue entry in the finance ledger?
And the answer is in this table.
The answer is in one field in this table, the object key field, OKI. This is arguably the most important integration field in the entire SAP system.
So explain how it works. How does it bridge the two worlds?
When you create a billing document in SD, let's say the number is 900,000,000, the system creates a totally separate document in finance with a completely different number, say document 500,000,000. There's no obvious link.
So how do you connect them?
In the accounting document header table, BKPF, the OKI field stores the SD invoice number 900,000,001. That is the definitive, unbreakable, hard link between the two.
So if I'm trying to prove to the company controller that a specific invoice is posted, I can just show them the OKI in their own table.
Exactly. You say, look at table BKPF in your system, filter the OKI field by my SD invoice number. If a record is there, the debate is over. The golden handshake is complete.
I love that phrase. The debate is over. Data ends arguments. The sources also mentioned a hidden gem for billing, VRKPA.
Yes, the sales index for partners. VBRK, the main invoice table, is huge. It can have millions, even billions of records. If you want to find all the invoices for a specific payer, say, show me everything Walmart owes us, scanning VBRK is very slow because the payer is not the primary key.
So VRKPA is a shortcut.
It's a highly optimized index table built specifically for that purpose, searching by partner. It's a massive performance booster for reporting.
We have covered the entire process flow. Now we need to talk about the math. Section 5. The condition technique pricing tables. This feels like the area that scares the most consultants. It can feel like a black box.
Pricing is definitely complex, but the tables that support it are very logical once you understand the structure. We have two sides to this coin: the transactional pricing for a specific document and the master data, which is your price list.
Let's start with transactional. This is the price on the order I'm looking at right now. We talked about that holy grail field, KNUMV, earlier.
Right. VBAKNUMV points us here. In the old ECC world, that number was the key to a table called KONV. KONV was a cluster table that held every single pricing condition: the base price, the discount, the tax, the surcharge for that one specific order.
But in S/4HANA, this changes.
It's a massive technical change under the hood. KONV is technically replaced by a new, more modern table called PRC-Elements.
Why the change? I mean, KONV worked for 30 years.
The simple answer is field length and capacity. KONV used a short counter field for the conditions. As systems got bigger and pricing procedures became more complex with hundreds of steps, companies were literally running out of numbers. PRC-Elements uses a much wider key structure using DIs to handle far more complex scenarios and longer field values.
So what's the impact if I have custom code reports, interfaces, extensions that read select from KONV?
It needs to be rewritten. Now, in S/4HANA, for backward compatibility, SAP often puts a redirect view in place, so a direct select on KONV might still work, but it's slow and can lead to errors. For performance and correctness on an S4 system, your code should be reading PRC-Elements. If you're on an upgrade project, identifying all the code that reads KONV is a top priority.
That's transactional. Now, what about the master data, the price list I set up last year that says this product costs $10?
That lives in a pair of tables: KONH for the header and KONP for the item. KONH holds the validity dates, like this price is valid from January 1st to December 31st. KONP holds the actual rate, $10 per piece.
And how does the system know which price to pick out of all the possible prices? This is the concept of A tables, right?
This is the really dynamic part of pricing. When you configure pricing in SAP, you create something called an access sequence. You're telling the system the order to search in. You say, first, look for a price specific to this customer and this material.
Most specific price.
Exactly. Then you say, if you don't find that, look for a price just for this customer group and this material, and so on, from most specific to most general.
And SAP physically generates database tables for each of those combinations.
Yes. The system dynamically generates tables that are named A00 through A9999. For example, the table for price by customer and material might be generated as A005.
So A05 isn't a standard table that exists in every single SAP system.
No, it depends entirely on your specific configuration. In your system, A005 might be price by customer material. In my system, A005 might not exist at all, and my equivalent table might be named A305. You have to know which A table corresponds to your access sequence to properly debug why a certain price is or isn't being picked up by the system.
That explains why you can't just Google SAP price table and get a single straight answer.
Exactly. You have to look at your system's access sequence configuration to find the specific table name that's relevant for your analysis.
And to wrap up pricing, we have the configuration tables, T683 and T683S.
These are the blueprints. They define the pricing procedure itself, all the steps, the calculation logic. T683 lists the procedures, and T683S lists the steps inside each one. If you want to know why is the tax calculated on the net value instead of the gross value, end quote, you look at the step logic and the formulas defined in T683S.
Okay, let's zoom out a bit. We've looked at the data tables for master data and transactions. Now let's look at the brains of the operation. Section 6, configuration and control tables. Why should a troubleshooter look at config tables? Shouldn't it just be for the people who are building the system initially?
Not at all. You look at config tables to understand behavior. The system isn't magic. If it's doing something, it's because a configuration table told it to do it that way. If you are debugging, you need to know the rules of the game you're playing.
Let's start with TVAK. This is for document types.
Right. This table controls the behavior of the order type. If you want to know if a rush order automatically blocks a delivery from being created, you check the fields in TVAK for that order type, like the field lists off. If lists off is set, the delivery is blocked by default. You don't have to guess. You can just check the table.
And the next level down, TVAP for item categories.
This is a huge one. There's a key field here called FKREL, billing relevance.
Why is this one so critical?
Because of the classic missing billing scenario. A user calls you and says, I shipped the goods, the delivery is complete, but the item won't appear in my billing due list. You check the document status, everything looks fine.
And you're stuck.
Until you check TVAP for the item category used on that order. If the FKREL field is set to something like not relevant for billing, then the system is doing exactly what it was configured to do. It will never allow that item to be billed.
So the data isn't broken. The configuration itself is preventing the action.
Exactly. And you find that definitive answer by looking at TVAP.
Then we have TVEP for schedule lines.
This is a key integration point with materials management, MS. There's a field here, BWORT, which is the movement type. This table tells the system, when you post goods issue for this schedule line, use movement type 601. That 601 code is what triggers the inventory reduction and the financial posting. If your inventory isn't reducing correctly, check if someone accidentally changed the movement type in TVEP.
And finally, copy controls. TVCPA and TVCPF. That sounds intimidating.
They're just the traffic cops of the system. They control the rules. When you copy a sales order to an invoice, what happens? Do we copy the price exactly as it was, or do we redetermine the price based on today's date? That behavior is controlled by the pricing type field, KNPRS, in the copy control table TVCPF. If your invoices aren't picking up the latest price changes, it's because KNPRS is probably set to copy old prices without change.
Section 7. Specialized, Advanced, and S4HANA simplifications. These feel like the tools for the real power users. Let's talk about indices and queues. We mentioned VRKPA, but there are others.
Indices are basically just waiting rooms or to-do lists for the system. Think of VETVG. This is the delivery due index specifically for stock transport orders.
STOs, that's when we move goods between our own plants, right?
Yeah.
Not to a customer.
Yes. If a plant manager is complaining that an STO isn't showing up in the list of things to be shipped, you check VETVG. If the order isn't in that index table, the shipping program, VL10B, won't see it.
And what about VKDFS?
The billing due list. This is the most critical index for the entire SD to finance process. When a user runs the transaction VFCO4 to create a batch of invoices, the system doesn't scan every single order in history. That would take a week.
It just looks at this list.
It scans VKDFS. VKDFS is a small, tight, optimized list of everything that is ready to be billed right now.
So if an order or delivery isn't in VKDFS,
VFO4 will never find it. You can run the billing job 10 times an hour. It will never pick it up. You have to first figure out why it's not in the index and then sometimes run a program to rebuild the index entry.
that explains so many missing invoice tickets, where consultants just stare at the screen confused. They say, but the status says it's relevant.
Status is one check. The index entry is the other. You need both.
What about texts, STXH and STXL? I've tried to query these tables before with SE16N and just got a screen full of nonsense.
You have to proceed with extreme caution here. STXH is the header table. It's readable. It just tells you that a text exists. For example, there is a shipping instruction text for order 123.
And STXL holds the actual words.
STXL holds the actual text lines. But, and this is a huge warning for anyone listening, the text in STXL is stored as compressed binary data. The field type is LRAW.
LRAW, so I can't just read it.
You cannot read it with a standard SQL query. It will just look like garbage characters or hexadecimal code. You have to use a special function module, like read text, to decode it and read the content. So never write a report that tries to do a direct select from STXL. It simply will not work.
That's a great warning. And output, the table NAST.
NAST is the classic table for message status. Did the order confirmation print? Did the EDI message go out? The status field, VStat, tells you the story. 0 means it's waiting to be processed, 4 means there was an error, and 1 means it was processed successfully.
But there's a big S4HANA warning here, too.
Yes. S4HANA introduced a completely new output management framework based on BRF plus business rule framework.
Well,
if your system is configured to use this new modern logic, the NAST table will be empty. It's not used at all.
so it's obsolete.
It can be. However, a lot of S4 systems, especially early adopters, are still running in a compatibility mode using the old NACE and NAST logic, because the new one is it's very complex to set up. You just need to know which output framework your project is using before you start troubleshooting in NAST.
Now let's talk more about the simplification impact in S4HANA. We touched on the business partner and PR elements, but there's a section in our sources called the death of status tables, VBUK and VBUP.
This is a massive, massive change for anyone who grew up on ECC. In the old days, all the status information is the order open, is it partially shipped, is it fully invoiced, is it on credit hold. All of that lived in these two central status tables, VBUK for the header and VBUP for the item.
So to write a report for open sales orders, you had to join your order table, VBAK, to the status table, VBUK.
You had to. There's no other way.
And now in S4HANA,
They are gone. Obsolete. They still exist in the data dictionary as CDS views for backward compatibility, but the physical tables are gone. The status fields, like GBSTK for the overall status, have been moved directly onto the header tables themselves onto VBA, LIKP, and VBRK.
that actually sounds a lot better.
It is so much better. From a database performance perspective, it's a huge win. It means one less join in every single sales report. Your queries are faster.
But there's a trap.
There's the trap. If you have old custom reports that were built over the last 20 years and they contain a join to VBUK, they will break on S/4HANA. They will syntax error. They will dump. You have to rewrite all that code to look at the status field on VBAK directly instead.
So simplification is just another word for rewrite all your custom code.
In the short term, yes, that's the pain of the migration. But in the long term, it means a faster, more efficient system.
And one more major simplification, inventory management.
MKPF for the header and MSA for the item are the old material document tables. Any goods movement was recorded there. They are now replaced by one single, massive mega table called MAT-DOC.
Why does an SD consultant need to care about that?
Because SD drives inventory movements. When you post goods issue for a delivery, you reduce stock. If you're trying to reconcile why the stock level for a product is off, you used to have to join MKPF to MSA. Now you just query MAT-DOC. It is the single source of truth for every single bids movement in the entire system, FI, MM, SD, all of it.
We have covered an incredible number of tables. Now, Section 8, the expert guide joins and troubleshooting. This is where we bring it all together. The sources list some golden joins. Let's recap the full process trace again, the right way.
Okay. If you want to trace the full life of a transaction effectively without killing your system's performance, here is the path you should always take.
Step 1.
Start with VBAK, the sales order header. From there, you go to LIPS, the delivery item, using that direct backlink field, VGBL. Do not use VBFA.
And for the delivery?
From LIPS, you can then jump to VBRP, the invoice item, using its VGBL backlink, which points to the delivery.
So the path is VBAK, LIPS, VBRP. Clean, fast, direct.
Exactly. That gives you the full order to delivery to invoice chain without ever touching the slow, inefficient document flow tables.
And for addresses, let's just solidify that logic. It's a common point of confusion.
Always start at the most specific level, the transaction itself. Check the partner table for the document, VBPA, for an address number, ADRNR. If it's filled in there, that's a transaction-specific address. Use that number to go to ADRC.
And if it's not there?
If it's blank in VBPA, you fall back to the master data. You take the customer number from the order, VBA CUMNR, go to KNA1 to get the master data address number, ADRNR, and then go to ADRC. Always check the transaction-specific address first before falling back.
Let's play out a couple of troubleshooting scenarios. War stories, if you will. Scenario A. A billing document was not created. The user is panicking. They need to close the month. What is your mental checklist?
Okay, here's my triage process, step by step. Step 1. I check the waiting room. Is it in the billing due list? I go to SE16N, table VKDFS, and I search for my sales order or delivery.
And if it's there?
If it's there, the system knows it needs to be billed. The user probably just used the wrong date range in the billing creation screen, VS01. That's a user training issue.
Okay, but what if it's not in VKDFS?
Step 2. I check the configuration. I go to the sales order item in VBAP, find the item category, then go to Table TVAP and check the billing relevance field, FKREL. Is the item even configured to be relevant for billing? If not, I stop right there. The system is working as designed.
And if it is relevant?
Step 3. I check the status. I look at the sales order header, VBAK, and check the overall status field, GBSTK. Is the order on credit hold? If it's blocked for credit, it will not appear in the billing due list.
And if all of that looks good?
Step 4. I check the process flow. If it's a delivery-related billing scenario, has the delivery actually been post-goods issued? I check the status in the delivery header, LIKP. If it's not PGI'd, you can't bill it.
That is a solid logical checklist. You just eliminate the variables one by one. Okay, scenario B, output. The order confirmation email didn't go out to the customer.
Okay, first question. Are we on legacy NAST output or the new BRF Plus out? Assuming it's the classic NAST. Step 1. I go to table NAST. I filter by the object key, which is my sales order or invoice number.
What are you looking for?
2 things. First, is there an entry at all? Second, if there is, what's in the VStat field? If VStat is 4, that means error. I can check the processing log to get the technical details. Maybe the email server was down or the address was invalid.
But what if there is no entry in NAST at all for your document?
Ah, that's the key. If there is no record in NAST, it means the system never even tried to generate the output. That means your configuration, your access sequence failed. You need to go to Transaction NACE and check your condition records. You've probably missed maintaining the output master data for that specific customer or order type.
Simple, logical, and effective.
That's the entire power of the data model mindset. You stop guessing and you start verifying.
We have covered a lot of ground today, from the master data foundations of KNA1 and the S4 Business Partner, through the transaction flow of VBA LIKP and VBRK, the handshake with finance and BKPF, and the deep logic of pricing and configuration.
It is a lot, but it really is the map of the territory. And if you know the map, you never truly get lost.
So for the listener, for our learner who wants to become that go-to expert, what is the final takeaway?
Don't fear the technical settings button. Don't be afraid of transaction SC16N. The next time you have a problem, don't just look at the document flow graphic on the screen. Open a second window. Look at the tables. Verify the data for yourself. The screen is just a mask. The tables are the reality.
And here's a final provocative thought for you to chew on as you go about your work. We've talked about how all these tables link together. So how could you use these specific links, like the VGBL backlink in LIPS or the AKI handshake in BKPF, to build a custom report that solves a recurring business headache at your company?
Imagine building a sales order backlog report that doesn't just list late orders. Imagine it also reads the credit status directly from VBA and the real-time stock availability from ARS, all in one view. That kind of report tells the business not just what is late, but why it's late.
That is where the true value lies. The power isn't in memorizing this list of 50 tables. It's in applying that knowledge to build real solutions.
Exactly right.
So start digging. SE16N is waiting. Thanks for diving deep with us.
My pleasure. Keep learning.
We'll see you on the next deep dive.